So welcome. This is the Drupal usability meeting for May 13th, 2022. I'm Benji Fisher moderating. Also on the call are Mike Herschel, who is sharing the screen, and will start us off. Jason Bugiata, Antonia, Offer Schall, Ralph Kohler, Simo Helston, and Thomas Howell. And some of you I haven't met before, so thanks for joining the meeting. If you'll either comment on the issue for today's meeting or ping me in Slack with your Drupal.org username, then I can give you credit for attending the meeting. And I also want to point out that as far as I know, no one on the meeting is a certified usability expert, but what we do have is a variety of backgrounds. So that I think is very helpful for usability discussions. I know we have front and back end designers, front and back end developers, we have designers and site builders. And also, if it's easier for you to type rather than talk, I will keep an eye on the chat and read your comments into the discussion. So with that out of the way, take it away, Mike.
Hey everybody, so this is Mike Herschel. This is I'm talking about issue 3279725, and it's the default articles content types form display should have the image above the body. So this one to me is just kind of a make sense type thing. So let me explain this to you. When you go into an article within Drupal, let me just show an article here. Actually, let me just go on the front page. The image is above the content. However, when adding the article, so if I add an article in here, the image is below the content at the very bottom. I believe that this image field should be above the body because that would make sense. And that is the gist of this. Does that make sense, or does anyone have any questions?
I think it makes sense to me. Like it follows the editor experience should follow the view experience of the user.
I agree.
Makes sense to me too. The image is usually the first field after the title when I build custom content types.
I think it makes sense if we assume that most of the content has images. If the site only has images on some sites, but majority of the content is just text content, then it would be easier for the user to have that image in the end. But I think I would expect that majority of sites have images. Also for maybe sharing purposes or stuff like that, people tend to use images so that there is something.
Yeah, cool. So is there anyone that like really disagrees with this before we kind of put this one to bed? Yeah, I think this one's pretty straightforward, so I agree with everyone. Okay, so I have a couple more issues, but I will let other people go because I don't want to, monopolize all the time. Then when y'all are ready, I can come back and do another one.
I have one that I could present. Let's see. Getting some static. I don't know if that's just me.
Yeah, I hear the static too. I don't know where it's coming from.
It might be my background noise, but Mike, I think you're familiar with the standard form of the comments to add, and I assume you'll comment on that issue and link to the issue for the meeting, right?
Yep. I will leave a comment in the issue so that we discussed it, that we all came to a consensus, and go from there. Cool.
So, Aaron, are you working on getting a screen up to share?
Yeah, I can do that. So it's an issue I posted in a comment, and it is issue number 3150316, and that is configured actions created by user module cannot be edited. So in fact, I'll just demonstrate the problem. So if we've got the actions UI module enabled here, we get all these lists of actions, and certain ones, like from the user module, we can come in and configure. So let's say we wanted to change this action and change the role. But the problem is we actually can't make any changes, because as soon as I hit save, I get an error message saying the machine readable name must contain only letters, numbers, and underscores. As you can see, the machine name for these auto-generated ones has a dot in it to separate the action name and the role. So for example, there's another one here for the content editor role, and you get the same problem with this one, because there's a dot and then the role name. So you actually can't, even though you can come into these to configure them, you actually can't configure them. You can't make any changes to the auto-generated ones. So this issue here is looking to address that. There were a couple of ideas proposed here. The first one was the user module that it creates could use a legal machine name character. So for instance, like an underscore instead of instead of a dot for where the role name is, or to fix the actions module so a dot is considered an allowed character in the machine name. I think both of those are solutions to the immediate problem, but in my view, they are sort of they just put a plaster over the root issue, which is that it's the machine name element gets validated when the user can't do anything about it. So basically, the user could get this error message and can't do anything about it. And so even if we make any of these changes, if we make the change so that, say, we change the character from a dot to an underscore for the actions name, this problem could still surface in another way. For instance, if another module provided a machine name with a dot in it for the actions, and then for the other proposed solution of changing the what's considered legal characters for the actions module, I'm not a fan of that either, because it means that what's considered allowed characters for machine name starts to diverge from other parts of core, and then the actions module becomes a sort of a snowflake in that it's the only one that allows dots in the machine name. I a couple of weeks ago posted a comment to that effect, just kind of summarizing my points there, but I thought it'd be better to bring it up at this meeting just to get a sort of consensus from a usability perspective, and to see if the consensus is that actually we should fix the underlying issue of the fact that make it so that the machine name element isn't validated if you can't change it. Oh, we're getting static again. I think someone trying to talk.
Not hear me clearly?
Oh, I hear you now. Didn't hear you before. Oh, static again.
Well, is this developer experience rather than end user experience that you're asking about?
So I think it's, sorry, Yeah, I think it's more on the user experience side, because ultimately the user here, if they come in to edit an action, they get an error message that they ultimately can't do anything about. So they're not able to, you know, save this form because this error message will come up.
So I missed some of that. So the options were like number one to allow the period within the validation, but we don't want to do that because we don't want to have it be a special snowflake.
Mhm.
Is the other option to just replace the period with an underscore?
Yeah, so that was the other option that was proposed. And then that one I wasn't really a fan of, because then you could, you know, what we're seeing here is actually the underlying problem, in my opinion, of the machine name element actually being validated when the user can't do anything about it, because you could then, even if we've solved that issue for the user module actions, you would still be able to trigger this issue for, say, actions from a different module, or by using a different illegal character. Fundamentally, what you end up with is configuration can provide any character for a machine name, but the UI is restricted.
So the solution that you're proposing is, sorry, I was typing when you went over this. The solution that you're proposing is to remove the validation in the event that it's not editable.
Yeah, that's correct.
I mean, to me, that makes sense to me. Like, I don't know, I don't necessarily have like the backend experience to know if there's any like other like any downsides of that, but but this obviously does touch both developer experience and user experience, and to me that's like, that makes sense to me. You know, so if you go forward and then, you know, if there's any downside, the core committers will catch that.
Yeah.
I think it could be rephrased in another way, that to say that if the value is not changed, then it doesn't get validated. So if it's kind of a default value, or a value that is like, if the value doesn't change, so then it kind of doesn't need to know if it's editable or not, but then it can be kind of a issue of the value. So I think so that would make it kind of a I think that would make it maybe well defined if the value is not changed.
I think it's like with the machine name, you're not supposed to be able to edit it in the first place. So like once something is created, the machine name should never change. So the idea is like, if we just make it so that the machine name element itself, because this is on the form element, it doesn't trigger validation when it's disabled, then that kind of solves it, in my view, for all cases.
Something to keep in mind is the description text below the machine readable name is not correct. You know, so even if we remove the validation, that description text that says, you know, lowercase letters, numbers, and underscores, that's not correct, because there is a period down there. I don't know if anyone's ever going to notice that, but that's just something.
I think if I reload the page, so you actually don't, so you don't get that if in this situation. So like, we kind of also solved that problem by making it, because if this never gets validated when you hit save, you would also never see that. That description text, I think, is really only meant for if we went to like create, let's just pick the user role. If we create a user role and we come in here, we can edit the machine name, and then this description text is technically valid.
Yep. Well, I am all for your solution. So.
Okay, great.
I don't know if anyone else disagrees or has thoughts.
Can you still not hear me?
I can hear you now.
It's a new headset. It seems to be giving me problems. it seems to me that any solution you use solves the usability problem, whether you remove the validation or whether you change the dot to an underscore. It's a clear usability bug, and any solution you have is going to solve the usability problem. But then the question becomes more of a back end problem, which is the right solution. So there seems to be a disconnect that we're using a form element that requires a machine name, letters and underscores, but maybe it's not appropriate to use that form. So we have to look at sort of what the backend expects. And I think that actions are actually part of Drupal core. They're not provided by any module. They're provided by Drupal core, and it's only the UI that's provided by a module. Does that sound right?
Yes.
So what does Drupal core require? And then use the appropriate field type for what that requires, or possibly change Drupal core and say that the action system in Drupal core should use standard machine names. But one way or another, change it so that the form element is appropriate for what is required by actions.
Okay.
But that's
think,
not
like,
a usability question.
Yeah, I guess the thing is, like, the form element is provided by the actions module, and it uses, I believe it's just using the standard machine name form element. And then obviously in the configuration, it's pulling it from the configuration, which you can put, in theory, any set of characters in. I think there is a related issue to for the machine name. If you were to like add a yeah, so it's this issue here, just to bring up, so there's a related issue about adding the validation to the machine name, the actual config sort of schema for machine name, because right now you could put any set of characters into the configuration machine name, but not in the UI. So this issue would kind of try to address that, so that configuration is also restricted to an allowed set of characters.
The number in the title of this issue?
Yeah, so this one is also 2920678. And this, I guess this was triggered by
for the allowed characters of machine names.
Yes. So that would kind of address the underlying issue for the config. I think with regards to the usability, again, coming back to the issue we were looking at, my concern ultimately with both of these proposed resolutions here was, as I said, like the one about adding a dot to the machine name to the allowed characters, that causes the actions UI to then diverge from the rest of core, which is not necessarily a good position. We would want consistency. And then the other one of, I suppose you could also change the characters that the machine name for the user actions uses. But again, you could still, without changing the validation rules on the machine name element, you can still trigger this error just with a different character that's not allowed.
Also promised to keep an eye on the comments, and both Antonia and Rolf give a +1 for using standard machine names. So using underscores and not using dots.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, there are also issues of providing an update path and backwards compatibility, but again, those aren't usability questions. So we can leave those to the people working on the issue.
Okay, so it sounds like from what people are saying that the user module should be changed so that it uses for its actions, so that it uses sticks within the allowed characters. But it sounds like there is some kind of consensus that we shouldn't be validating an element that the user can't do anything about. And I'll bring that screen up again.
Yeah, I would agree. And I wonder if those are two different separate issues.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. Those might be separate issues.
Yeah.
And in the chat, Ralph asks, would it make sense to use 2 underscores in a row instead of the period? So you signify and separate the role. And that, I was thinking of that too, that might make sense. But again, that's an implementation question. That's not really a usability question. And Antonia says that would also be a new pattern that we don't have in core. Antonia, I'm not sure what you're referring to, the double underscores.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. That's fine. I can, if there's no other comments, I can write up those on the issue.
Show us your second issue.
Are you talking? Who are you asking?
I'm asking you.
Okay.
I think you're the only mic on the call.
Oh, sorry, I didn't hear the word mic. All right. So I actually got, I have 2 more issues if you want to. So let me bring up this issue. I'm going to share my screen. All right, this particular issue. All right. Well, this is issue number. I'm getting that scratchy static from someone.
Benji, can you try mute maybe? Because I see sometimes your user being marked as talking when you're not talking. Now it is quiet.
Yeah, stop. All right, so this is issue 3279703. And I want to change the like when you install the standard profile, it says welcome to site name. And I just want to change that to welcome. And let me just show you what that looks like. So when you install Drupal right now, it looks like this. It says welcome to Olivero or welcome to whatever, you know, but like a lot of times it says like welcome to Drush site install or something like that, you know, and it's like, that's dumb, you know, or in my opinion, you know. So what I would like to do, like there's all this text down here about Drupal, but the heading doesn't match that, right? So my initial thought was going to say like, welcome to Drupal. But then I think Christina Chemias just said like, well, why don't we just say welcome? And like, that makes sense right there. Just say welcome, you know, and then we can talk about it. And then someone else mentioned that, well, now we have 2 exclamation points and might be a little shabby. So like maybe take this other one and make a period here. And it would look like something like that. To me, this looks a lot better. Like this is a type of thing that I care about because this is, you know, this for people evaluating Drupal, this is the type of thing that this is the first thing that they're going to see, you know, so this is like part of the out of the box type stuff. And so I wanted these changes are easy to make. This is all like within a template within Olivero. So I wanted to get y'all's opinions on that. It's a very subjective thing, obviously.
Feedback in the chat. Offer says, I love the idea of just welcome. Antonia says, me too, so simple. Aaron says he agrees with all of that.
All right. Well, does anyone disagree before we switch gears?
We get a +1 from Ralph.
Cool.
And Thomas Howell agrees.
All right. This is the quickest decision ever. Okay, I have one more issue if you like. I have a meeting in like 15 minutes, so if it's all right with everyone, can I go over this right now?
Yeah, sure.
Cool. So this one, I'm gonna log in really quick here. So within Olivera, we're placing the syndicate block over on the right-hand side right here. So this is like the little RSS feed. Right now, the title of the syndicate block is set to the site name. And that's hard coded. You can't change it. And that's a little confusing because if you go in and you configure this block, it says RSS feed right here. And I want this to say RSS feed over there because as someone that's coming in here, they might not know what that icon is, you know, and you might want it to say RSS feed. But right now it's hard coded to the site name, which might be Olivero, might be Bob's Burgers, might be Drush Site Install. That will show up right there. So my thought is that we should change the text to whatever the title is. So it's user configurable, and we would have a default. The default right now says RSS feed. So the default would say RSS feed because that's what it is. And if the user wants to change that, they just configure the block.
So I have a question. What's nice about having the name of the site there is if anyone is using it, won't that name also appear when they use the syndication?
That's a good question. Let's open up Firefox because Firefox does RSS right here. I'm opening up Firefox. Click on this. It just says RSS.xml. If I click on it, I thought Firefox handled this. No, it just downloads it. Let's see what Chrome does here. I mean, the title says Olivero in here, but I don't think that's the same thing. You know, we're just changing the label here.
Right. I thought that when you use an RSS feed reader, that it takes that name and that's how it marks it rather than just calling it like RSS. But I have not used this for an eternity.
Yeah, I'm pretty confident that like it gets it from the title of the XML right here.
Okay, but is that XML going to change when
No.
you change the name that appears there?
Nope, we just want to change the name that appears here.
Okay.
And then that would obviously be user configurable. So if you want to say like Mike's super awesome RSS feed, and then some emojis, you could do that too. So is there anyone that has questions on this or that agrees or disagrees?
That the configurable title currently appears, is that only in the admin UI?
Well, so you can edit this right here, but nothing ever happens because this text is set to the site name. So if I go into my site name, it will then update the syndicate block. And that's not, to me, that's not expected, you know? If I get in here, I want to make this RSS feed and I expect that title to show up right there.
Title show up any other place, or is it totally ignored?
It is totally ignored. It does not show anywhere.
In the code, that is kind of a feed icon label. So it's kind of it's in the code, it's very much tied to the SVG. So it shouldn't be something that is actually involved with the RSS feed in the end. So if that's changed in the code.
Yeah, this is to like a change within the block, not within the feed itself. So we're only changing the display of it.
And I just confirmed that as well.
He agrees that this makes a lot of sense.
Mike,
Can I see the markup just so we can see whether there's
Sure.
any title text or
So what we have right here, I command plus it, make it bigger. So we just have the hyperlink. And then we have the site title and span. And then we have the SVG that's hidden. So SVG is hidden from the screen reader, but it, shows up.
What does a screen reader say about that? So I think it
Screen-
would, for screen reader, like a first idea is that it would be more, it's,
The
I
screen
can-
reader would read this.
yeah. And
It
it
would
would
not,
make,
it would not read this.
yeah, so it would makes sense also for screen reader to say that it's RSS or some kind of, this is feed or not and not just the site name.
I agree with that, yeah. I agree, yeah. Because if this says, the site name, which could be Olivero, the screen reader would say link Olivero. And that doesn't give you any context on what the heck, it's linked to.
I agree with you, Mike. I think this makes sense, and I have to admit that I'm kind of surprised by the behavior. I could have sworn that I
Yeah.
installed Olivero like a few months back on a site, and it said RSS feed and not the site name.
Yeah, that would hope, that would be expected, but yeah, set the site name. So is there anyone that disagrees?
No, I just wanted to know, did we look to see if this code has been updated in the past 6 or 12 months? Or is
That's
this been
that's
this
a-
way for years?
That's a good question. I don't know. I haven't done any type of Git forensics on it.
The main reason is I'm a little concerned if somebody else actually committed the change in the past X number of months, and then we're going to revert it without reviewing whatever that related issue may be. So
Yeah,
a little
yeah,
bit of
and that's
forensics would be great.
valid. Yeah, I agree with that. Well, assuming that we want to proceed with this, we'll definitely, bring up the old Git blame and see what the heck's going on and make sure that, whatever concerns are taken care of. But yeah, I'm not quite sure what the origin of this is. I don't honestly think it was a recent change, but I'm not
Okay.
positive either.
But yeah, this is fine so long as it doesn't change how the RSS would get added elsewhere, which it sounds like it doesn't. Then
Yep.
yeah, it makes sense.
Okay.
Mike, I like the idea, and I see in the code of feed-icon HTML twig of Olivero that if there is no title, then it goes to RSS feed. So I guess we would just, so every time we do use site install, it creates a title.
I would say so what you're saying, Ofer, to make sure I understand properly, is that if there's no title at all, you want to default to RSS feed?
No, I'm saying the code that I see in core right now is checking if title or title is null, then title is set to RSS feed in the twig of feed icon of Olivero now.
Well, the title's a mandatory field. So
Yeah, I guess I'm looking when we start talking about Git blame and why was it created. I looked into the code itself, and it
Yeah.
seems like it want to put RSS feed unless it was overridden by something, but something is.
Yeah, so I think
It seems
you know,
like this link is related. At least it's in the code.
Hmm.
And was close and fig. Maybe that is what changed it. I post in the Zoom chat. 3156244.
I'm looking at, I can't find my Zoom chat. How do you find the Zoom chat? There it is.
The code says to do, this works around that issue. Title variable isn't set by syndicate block.
Yeah, so
Maybe
like
it's something else. Maybe
issue,
it's
that issue is getting the site name. So that was like an addition. I think that was an addition in that issue that you posted of our.
Yeah, look, so
Um,
I propose we use a site name for this. So, and then, so this is where it was. So how long ago is this? This is so this is recent. So this was committed.
it's almost a year ago. 10 months ago.
Yeah, 10 months ago. I'm gonna link this issue.
Yeah, so I guess from the perspective of usability, I mean, while it's important that we understand the context around why it is what it is now, if as a group, if we make a recommendation that actually it would be a better user experience for it to say, to use the block title instead of the site name, and then you have more control over making it say something like RSS feed or syndication or whatever you want. That to me seems like something that is valid and that we can, make that recommendation.
Yeah, like also keep in mind that 10 months ago, like Olivero, wasn't the default theme yet. So people like when 9.4 comes out, people are gonna see this, before they
Yeah.
weren't like really noticing it,
Yeah, that's probably a important, point as to why we should take action on that.
Hold on, I linked the wrong issue. Yeah. All right, well, okay, so is there anyone that that disagrees with this before we try to close this out? I have a meeting in like 6 minutes, by the way.
Yeah, it sounds fine.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna stop sharing. I will add some notes to this in a little bit. Thank you all for listening
Probably
to me.
a new accessibility issue to add something for screen readers. But that's probably a separate issue, right?
Yeah, you're talking about for like if there's no title in there or what?
No, I think even if the user, you have welcome to Drush install, site install, and now you'll see next to RSS Drush site install. I don't know if screen readers would know, and this is an RSS link.
Yeah, so like my thought is that the label would not say welcome to, or would not say Drush site install. It would just say RSS feed or whatever the user inputs the title.
Right, but I think what Benji meant. So I decided to change what it says next to it. It's my site name anyway, even with the new default. And now screen readers wouldn't be able to see that this is an RSS link because the icon doesn't say anything about RSS.
Yeah, you're right. I understand what you're saying. Yeah, that is a separate issue, and that's something that we should resolve.
Yeah, I think like on that point, I mean, we can't really control, like we'd be opening up a can of worms here because we can't really control what text user is gonna, put into the site. And there's a lot of cases where someone could do something that is not accessible. So I mean, we should, it's worth looking at a separate issue because potentially opening a can of worms of going down a rabbit hole of, well, if we enforce accessible descriptions here, should we do it for other places? And
I think it's more specifically about the icon, because this is not just a decorative icon. It actually has a meaning that when I see it, I know RSS. So make it non-decorative icon.
I agree.
Okay.
And I can follow up on a separate issue for that and bring that to the accessibility maintainers, because I'm pretty I'm pretty confident they'll be on board with that, with what y'all are saying.
Okay.
I gotta drop because, like I said, I got a meeting in about 3 minutes. I appreciate all of you all. I appreciate everyone for chiming in and agreeing with me. So thank you for that.
Thanks,
And
Mike.
yeah,
Yeah.
thank you all for doing what you're doing.
And thank you for giving us something to talk about.
Yeah, right. I'll have tons. I'll always have stuff. All right. I'll talk to everybody later. Bye.
Thanks.
So we raced through an unusual number of issues today.
It must be like a world record.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ralph, you put a comment in the chat, and it's too late to read that for Michael's benefit, but I guess for the recording, I can read in the comment: a visual hidden span with RSS feed, for example, would be one way to make that accessible.
But I think Over's suggestion with a non-decorative icon is also fine, or maybe the better choice even. So
okay, I think we've gone through all of the things that were suggested either in Slack or on the issue. Is there anything else we should be talking about today?
I wonder if it's worth, because we never seem to have time at the end of meetings, but it was a suggestion a while ago that we should maybe, if we have time, we should look at the core ideas queue. I believe that was a suggestion by XGM.
You're right. Let's do that. Do you want to share your screen or shall I?
I don't mind. I can do that. I think there's 4 issues that are RTBC, so I just happen to have that list up. I don't know if I'm not sure if we should. None of these are immediately jumping out as usability. I think they're all about removing. Yeah, they're all relating to removing modules from core. Let me just go and see what the open issues are. I wonder if it's worth probably ones maybe needs review. What do you think?
We can't hear you, Benji.
We only hear the static. Nothing. Oh, something. Yes. Stay like that.
Like this?
Yes. Remind me the
There
old
you are.
TV antennas that you had to have a perfect way.
Aaron, can you paste a link to the search you're using so the rest of us can poke around
yeah.
too?
Sure. Let me get the chat open. There we go. That is in the chat. And some of these we've looked at, for instance, like the content creation menu proposal is one. There's also like the content editor, content manager rules.
Can't hear you.
Static.
Search. You can also search for the tag usability.
Ah, I heard that bit at the end. Is that gonna wait? Is there a better way to search for a tag or
In advanced search.
oh there we go. Huh. Okay, these are the only three that came up. Does anybody have any suggestions?
I do have a comment on that first one. And if you remember, we did add a content editor role to the standard profile.
Yep.
And one problem was that a bunch of the permissions that you want to give to it are only available if the content moderation module is enabled or workflows. And until 9.3 came out, it would be okay to create user roles that had phantom permissions. And then if you enabled content moderation, the role would have those permissions. But after 9.3, we can no longer do that. So we ended up with a very restricted list of permissions for content editor. And I don't know what permissions we can give to content manager without those modules available. But after the Trees note at DrupalCon, there's this proposal to have sort of, instead of distributions, have starter kits. Yeah. And I wonder if as that idea progresses, whether that will give us a better way to implement this.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought. And for anybody interested in that, there's the Slack channel. It used to just be called distributions. It's now distributions starter templates, I think, something to that effect, where this is being discussed. And there's a document that is, I think Alex Potts working on, that's starting to hash out what this might look like.
And maintaining a distribution is really a large maintenance burden. If we come up with something that's easier to maintain, that can have a collection of modules and some configuration, then it might make a lot of sense to add these roles there rather than in the standard profile.
And what becomes of the standard profile after that? Because for a long time, it's had a somewhat identity crisis, in my opinion. So I don't see that changing necessarily, but maybe it doesn't need to exist at some point in the future. Uh-oh, static. Nope. Benji, are you able to speak, or are you trying to fix your mic? Oh, you're still staticky. Oh, no, wait, there you go again. Here you are.
Is that better?
Yep, you're back now.
Are there any other issues from this queue that we should look at?
I only saw two other one-side usability. I think we've touched on the new content creator menu proposal issue before, and there's one about progressive web apps. I'm not sure if that is one we want to look at. I think you're static again, Benji.
Why it's tagged with usability.
Oh, I missed all of that except for why it's tagged usability.
So let's have a look.
Okay. Okay, so it looks like this one hasn't been updated for a while. And okay, so I guess the idea is about making it possible to have use Drupal as progressive web app. So it says the usability improvement is aimed at site visitors, logged in or anonymous. The new module is aimed at site owners if they decide they want to have an offline available website. Just activate the module and forget. Some settings should be available, possibly to choose which type of assets to cache. So sites activating this module will be available offline. Not every page will be available. Only the ones configured to always be available and the ones already visited. The network unreachable error page of the browser will be seen on those sites. So I guess that kind of summarizes the proposal of this, which progressive web apps have obviously become more and more prevalent in recent years. Let's see, I wonder if there, yeah, there's quite a lot of discussion that happened on this issue back. It's quite an old issue, looks like. And not much has happened in recent, the last few years. Hard to believe 2019 was multiple years ago.
I think the main issue here is whether or not having this module in core instead of having it as a contrib is a usability issue. So the PWA module, it had its like 1.5 release for that is Drupal 9 compatible. That was like March 21, and it exists. So I think what we might want to look is if it's a usability improvement to have that module included in the core.
Yeah.
And I think as it exists as a contrib, so I don't see it as I don't see the need to have it in core because it's available as contrib. It has a like releases.
As a release manager question, does this belong in core or not?
We missed some of what you said there, Benji, but I think was the gist of it about saying whether that's really a release manager's question. Oh, you're static again.
Chat.
Oh. Okay, so yeah, you said I did not see this as a usability issue. Yeah, from my perspective, I guess I can see like the point about it being like there's some advantages to using progressive web apps. Like the experience from the user's end is that, like was stated an issue, they can still access the site when it's offline, and I guess that it's implied that pages may load quicker because you can, you know, store all of the assets on the first site load, and then you're just changing the content. And Benji just said you could say the same for any module. It improves discoverability if it is in core. Oh, there's a comment further up from Ralph saying he agrees with Benji, and the PWA module in Contrib is only used by 2K sites at the moment, roughly. I'm going to open that up actually, because there we go. So yeah, this is the Contrib progressive web apps module. And I guess it does. I'd be interested to try this out actually. I'm aware of it, but I've not actually tried out the module to see how well it works.
Something to have on a site like PWA, progressive web apps, they are like especially good at in global south where the network is not so reliable, and in other places where the network is not so reliable. So it's a very good thing to have, but yeah.
Yeah.
Suggesting that we look at the ideas queue. I'll try to get my microphone fixed, but we're coming close to the end of the hour. So I guess thank you all for coming, and we'll be back next week.
Yep.
Thank you.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Thank you.
Best of luck with your mic, Benji.
I'll have to read the instructions again.
Yeah. Do you not have like a separate microphone, or is that the only one you have available?
This is all I.
Okay. Yeah, it does seem like it's maybe like a loose connection, because the way when it seemed like when you moved it to a certain position, it was fine, but otherwise it's the kind of noise you were getting was like classic, like loose connection kind of noise.
Yeah, so it might
For the
actually.
cable broken.
Okay,
Yeah, thanks everyone.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
See you later. Bye.